Let's quickly recap a few observations that we have made regarding the zeros of polynomial. Now, we have seen that, let's say if we have a polynomial px such that, let's say the polynomial is defined as 3x. In this case, if we want to find out the zero of this polynomial, how do we do it? Well, we will equate the polynomial to 0 and we are going to solve, right? So if we solve, then we are going to divide both sides by 3. So we will have x equals 0 by 3, or we will have simply x equals 0. So in this particular example, what we see is that the zero of this polynomial is actually 0. So the number 0 is the zero of this polynomial. Now let's take a look at another polynomial. For example, px equals, let's say, 5x minus maybe 10. So how do we find out the zero of this polynomial? Well, we will quite simply equate our polynomial to 0 and solve, right? So we will have 5x minus 10 equals 0. Or we are going to move the 10 to the other side. So we will get 5x equals 10. And we will divide both sides by 5. So we'll get x equals 10 divided by 5. And this will be simply 2. So in this example, for this particular polynomial, we see that the number 2 is the zero of this polynomial. So for this polynomial, the number 0 is the zero of this polynomial. For this polynomial, the number 2 is the zero of this polynomial. So in other words, the number 0 does not really have to be 0 of the polynomial, but the number 0 can be a 0 of the polynomial, right? Let's take a look at some more examples. Now, whenever we have a linear polynomial, so I think the last example was a linear polynomial. Let's take a look at one more example. Maybe let's say 2x plus 7. If this is a polynomial, how do we find out the zero of this polynomial? Well, we will simply equate this to 0, or we will have 2x plus 7 equals 0, and we will take the 7 on the other side. We will get 2x equals minus 7, and now we will divide both sides by 2. So we will have x equals minus 7 over 2. So 0 of this polynomial is this number. So we have seen time and again, whenever we have a linear polynomial is polynomial of degree 1, we always get 1 0 of the polynomial, right? All right, now let's take a quadratic polynomial, for example. So let's say we have a polynomial in y, and we may have done this example before. Say y squared minus 4. This is a polynomial. And we want to find out the zero of this polynomial. So how will we do it? So we'll do it the exact same way. We'll equate the polynomial to 0 and solve. So we have y squared minus 4 equals 0. We can write this as y squared minus 4 can be written as 2 squared equals 0. Now this is in the form of a squared minus b squared, which we can expand to say a plus b times a minus b equals 0. Now here we have product of two numbers is 0. So think of it this way. If we have a number times another number equals 0, now any one of the number can be 0, or both the numbers can be 0. So this can be 0 or this can be 0. So we have to consider the possibility. So let's assume first this is 0. So if this is 0, then we solve it. We get y equals, the 2 goes on the other side, y equals minus 2. So from here, we get y equals minus 2. If we assume this is 0, if this is 0 and we solve, so from here we get y equals to 2. So in other words, for this particular polynomial, which is not a linear polynomial, we have two zeros. Y equals minus 2, this is a 0 of the polynomial, and y equals 2 is another 0 of the polynomial. So in other words, if we have a linear polynomial, we always have 1 0 of the polynomial. But if it is not a linear polynomial, in this case it's a quadratic polynomial, here we have more than 1 0 of the polynomial. So in other words, if we were to just make these observations, let's consolidate them. So 0 does not have to be 0 of a polynomial, right? Second thing is 0 can be a 0 of the polynomial, which we saw these two conditions in the first two examples. Now, linear polynomial always have only one 0 of the polynomial. And finally, there can be more than one 0 of the polynomial. In our last example, we did see there were more than one 0. There were two zeros of the polynomial.